Let's talk honestly about what it actually means to be a single female INFJ. Not the romanticized version you find in personality quizzes or motivational posts, but the real, lived, sometimes exhausting and sometimes genuinely peaceful reality of being this specific type of person navigating a world that was not particularly designed with you in mind. INFJ stands for introverted, intuitive, feeling, and judging. It is considered one of the rarest personality types, and among women, it comes with a specific combination of qualities that make the single life both more natural and more complicated than most people from the outside would assume. INFJ women are deeply empathetic, meaning they feel things strongly and pick up on the emotions of people around them almost automatically, whether they want to or not. They are highly idealistic, meaning they hold strong internal values about how people should treat each other and what relationships should feel like. They are intensely private despite often appearing warm and approachable on the surface. And they have a very low tolerance for anything that feels shallow, performative, or dishonest, which, if you look at a significant portion of modern social interaction, is a description that eliminates a lot of options. The preference that many INFJ women develop for a quiet, independent life is not the result of giving up or being unable to connect with others. It is the result of a very specific calculation that happens over years of experience. INFJ women feel deeply. Every relationship they invest in costs them real emotional energy. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every one-sided connection where they gave everything and received very little in return, these experiences accumulate. And because INFJ women process their pain privately rather than expressing it outwardly, that accumulation often happens invisibly, building over time until the INFJ reaches a point where the cost of continuing to seek connection in the way society expects simply outweighs the reward. The quiet life is not resignation. For many INFJ women, it is the first genuinely comfortable choice they have ever made. One of the most consistent characteristics of female INFJs is the preference for depth over volume in relationships. Most INFJ women would rather have one or two people in their life who genuinely know and understand them than a wide social circle full of surface-level connections. This is not antisocial behavior. It is a different standard for what connection means. When an INFJ woman is fully present in a relationship, she is completely present. She remembers details. She notices changes. She invests genuine thought and care into the people she chooses to keep close. But she cannot do this for everyone, and she has learned, usually through painful experience, that spreading that kind of depth across many relationships leaves her depleted and often still lonely, because quantity of connection does not substitute for quality. Being single as an INFJ woman affects emotional life in ways that are genuinely contradictory and worth being honest about. On one hand, solitude is where INFJ women recharge. Time alone is not a punishment for this personality type. It is a necessity. An INFJ woman who has had too much social interaction without adequate alone time becomes irritable, exhausted, and emotionally dysregulated in ways that are hard to explain to people who find solitude uncomfortable. On the other hand, INFJ women have a deep and genuine need for meaningful connection that solitude alone cannot satisfy. This creates a push and pull that many single INFJ women live with constantly, craving alone time when they are surrounded by people and craving genuine connection when they have been alone too long. Finding the balance between these two needs, without a partner to provide the steady baseline of connection that many people rely on, is one of the genuine daily challenges of the single INFJ life. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing for an INFJ woman, and understanding the difference is important. Solitude is chosen and feels restorative. Loneliness is the feeling that arises when the need for genuine connection goes unmet for too long. INFJ women can experience profound loneliness while being surrounded by people if none of those people actually know them. They can also feel completely at peace alone if they have enough meaningful connection in their lives, even occasional, even digital, even through books, creative work, or the kind of absorbing hobby that makes the inner world feel rich and full. The management of this balance is something single INFJ women learn over time, and the ones who do it well tend to build lives that look unusual from the outside, but feel genuinely sustainable from the inside. Overthinking is one of the more exhausting features of the INFJ female experience, and it deserves to be named plainly. INFJ women do not just think about things. They run scenarios, analyze motivations, consider long-term implications, replay conversations to check for things they might have said wrong, and construct detailed mental models of situations and relationships that most people around them are not thinking about at anywhere near the same depth. This is useful in many contexts. It makes INFJ women excellent at anticipating problems, understanding complex situations, and seeing patterns that others miss. But it becomes genuinely harmful when it turns inward and starts applying that same analytical intensity to the INFJ's own choices, relationships, and self-worth. Single INFJ women who overthink their solitude, treating it as evidence that something is wrong with them rather than as a legitimate lifestyle choice, create a cycle of anxiety that undermines the very peace they were trying to build. Trust is something that INFJ women extend slowly and carefully, and for good reason. They are perceptive enough to detect inconsistencies between what people say and what they actually mean, and they have usually been burned enough times by extending trust prematurely that their internal system now requires real evidence before it opens. This is not paranoia. It is pattern recognition developed through experience. The challenge is that this careful approach to trust can make it harder to form new connections, because the INFJ woman is watching and waiting for signs of safety before she invests. And in a world that often rewards people who appear open and immediately warm, her cautious approach can be misread as coldness or disinterest. Setting boundaries is an area where INFJ women often struggle more than their outward composure suggests. Because they are naturally empathetic and genuinely care about the people in their lives, saying no, or pulling back from a relationship that is draining them, triggers guilt that can be paralyzing. Many INFJ women spend years allowing connections that cost them too much simply because the discomfort of maintaining a boundary feels worse in the moment than the slow drain of not having one. The growth that comes with age and experience, for most INFJ women, involves learning to treat their own emotional limits as legitimate, not as character flaws to be overcome or inconveniences to be apologized for, but as real information about what they can and cannot sustainably give. The lifestyle that genuinely suits a single INFJ woman best tends to involve a combination of structured independence and intentional connection. A consistent daily routine that includes time for creative work, learning, physical movement, and quiet restoration. A small number of relationships maintained with care and reciprocity. Work that feels meaningful rather than purely transactional. Work that uses her intelligence and her ability to understand people, that gives her some degree of autonomy, and that does not require her to perform enthusiasm she does not feel for 40 hours a week. Pets, often, because animals provide uncomplicated companionship and the kind of unconditional presence that human relationships rarely sustain consistently. A garden, or any kind of relationship with growing things, because the concrete and manageable nature of physical care for living things grounds a personality type that can otherwise spend too much time in its own head. The strengths of being a single INFJ woman are real, and they are worth naming without false modesty. INFJ women who have built independent lives tend to know themselves with unusual clarity. They have had to because the default social scripts did not fit them, and they had to figure out what actually did. They are self-sufficient in ways that people who followed conventional life paths often are not. They make decisions based on their own values rather than on what is expected of them. They have time, space, and energy to invest in personal growth, skill development, and the kind of long-term projects that require sustained focus, things that become genuinely difficult to maintain when life is organized around the needs of a partner and children. They're not waiting for their life to start. They're living it on their own terms right now. Personal growth for a single INFJ woman living alone happens most naturally when she stops treating her lifestyle as a temporary state waiting to be corrected and starts treating it as the actual context of her real life. Reading consistently, learning new skills, creating things, building financial independence, developing expertise in areas that genuinely interest her, maintaining her physical health not as vanity, but as the practical infrastructure of a life she intends to keep living on her own. These are not compensation strategies for being alone. They are what a full and deliberate life actually looks like. Mental and emotional health for a single INFJ woman is not maintained through grand gestures or dramatic interventions. It is maintained through small, consistent choices, sleeping at reasonable hours, eating food that actually supports her body, moving enough to keep the physical and emotional systems from stagnating, keeping the physical environment clean enough that it does not add to the mental weight she is already carrying, and staying connected to at least a few people or communities where she feels genuinely seen. None of these things are complicated. All of them require consistency, which is harder than it sounds when depression, chronic exhaustion, or the accumulated weight of years of absorbing other people's emotional needs has made even basic self-care feel like an enormous effort. Building a meaningful life as a single INFJ woman is not a project with a finish line. It is an ongoing practice of choosing every day the version of your life that actually fits who you are, rather than the version that was designed for someone else. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful or relatable, please subscribe to join my journey toward 2,000 videos. On this channel, I share unfiltered ESL stories, Yes, even the toxic ones, alongside Japanese and Korean language tips, my plants, my pets, and the reality of solo living. If you'd like to support my work and help me build my retirement fund, you can buy a treat for my pets via the link in the description below. Every bit of support helps keep this channel independent and growing. See you in the next one.
Take care.